Well, after that tremendous slog through the roll book, and I don't really expect anybody to watch that thing, but it does help me focus a little better on my reading of the rules. I skim through them, I have an understanding, but explaining them to someone, feeling that goal, whatever, gives me a little bit more confidence. But yeah, it took forever. Okay. Made the first decision of the game, which is the General-in-Chiefs. I guess the Union has to decide first. McDowell, with his 2 initiative and 4 attack value, seems somewhat better than McClellan with a 3 initiative but a 5 defense. McClellan's not a bad choice necessarily. It's just McClellan made a better 1-star general than McDowell does. So it's all very advantageous. Now, what's kind of weird is people don't get fully disgraced. You don't have the booting upstairs like some generals had done to them, where they were basically effectively moved out of a field command completely. I guess that's okay in the abstraction, but it... I don't know. It's a less detailed political system for the generals than some games have. Over on the Confederate side, my choice was Albert Sidney Johnston, who was historically in charge of the Army. He's got a very good 3-star officer. And the other side of things, Joe Johnston is a decent 2-star, but the choice of him as a 3-star didn't impress me as significant gain. Still a moderate initiative, and he didn't get a lot of combat ability off of it. I feel like Johnston got a lot more. His 1-star is a little slower. I guess that was the biggest decision. And we're talking about 2 points on the attack. So I'm looking at a more Western game from the Confederate side than maybe historically was done. I don't know. You know, I mean, first time playing a game, you're never sure what exactly your decisions are meaning. All right, now I hit the administrative phase, and at this point, well, actually I hit the initiative phase, and the Union has initiative automatically because they have more political capital. So I have a whole sort of menu of things, mostly that don't apply to me. The only one that does, and I can see a couple that do actually. I can purchase Union fleets. I'm allowed to purchase 1 fleet according to this. There's nowhere... Well, I can blockade this with 1 fleet. I can blockade a couple of these. I also kind of want to get on the move with building my fleets. So I'll do that. That'll cost me 1 PC. And I'll put it somewhere. Let's put it up in Philly. Doesn't really matter. All right. I do not have any reinforcements. I do not have any draft reinforcements. I'm kind of skipping around through the things because I'm trying to look at the things in the order that I'd be looking at them. So the only other thing that I feel like I can do at this point is I can convert some of my PCs to CSPs, and I can promote generals to 2 stars. And here's where kind of you have to balance out what you've got and what you want to do. I've got a lot of points available. Banking them doesn't do me a lot of good. This is what they're used for. They're used for buying stuff. So what I should be doing is looking for generals I want to upgrade and also making a decision of how many points I want to convert into CSPs, right? If I'm going to fight only one battle, I don't want more than 5 points. But if I'm going to fight multiple battles, I want more than that. So I'm going to be looking through my generals, trying to figure out who I'm likely to activate, who I'm not. I have some possible protection in the Kentucky situation here. But Kentucky isn't off limits the way it is in the other two big Civil War games that I'm used to. The Victory Games Classic, and then For the People, which is becoming something of a classic in its own right, I think, which is also down there. So I think it's also blocked in House Divided even. Yeah, the Kentucky rules here, let me... But there is not a prohibition, but an inhibition giving the opponent 5 PCs when you attack Kentucky. Which means you kind of want you kind of want to hold off on Kentucky, which could be a problem because I believe the GIC can't cross the Mississippi. Which means the Confederates may be committed to launching an attack in the West. I'll have to look that up. CDGs just seem to make their rules more difficult for me, but lots of color and stuff to look at rather than text makes it harder for me to understand rules too. And this one's full of color and stuff. I'll have to find that. For the Union, I'm going big. Trying to remember what my first turn restrictions are. I'm not allowed to remove IP. Okay. I bought myself 10 CSP, a lot of capability for fighting, and I spent most of the rest of my points. I upgraded Lyon, and I upgraded all the Washington generals. They don't gain much, but they pretty much each gain 1 point on each factor. I'm leaving the West aside because, well, I figure that's, or Kentucky aside, because I figure that's going to be pretty much Johnston's job to attack Kentucky. So, you know, he's going to have to gather forces together. He's also going to have to face my big 10 CSPs with the Confederates. So he's going to have to maybe not give me those PC at this point in the game. So big expenditure on the Union side. Let me figure out how the Confederates are going to react to that. They get to see what I've chosen to do there. That's kind of neat. Confederates, I had no trouble building myself an asset. And I got myself an ironclad, which I chose to put in New Orleans. I've got to know what it is before I place it, apparently. And a raider. To play out the long war. I mean, I'm not counting on it ending here in Virginia, and I don't think it can in this game. I'm outnumbered by this stack. I know that. I know what the Union player did. I don't necessarily know the values of the leaders because I can't look under this counter. However, if I was familiar with the game, I would know. So I could look and see. We're looking at a 5, 6, 7, and 11 attack strength. My defense, what could I range against him? Well, so a funny thing in this game is most leaders will gain less as they grow. So I'm better off with lower ranked leaders given that I can't have a major army in the East. It's an interesting set of occurrences. Which leaders do I want in my battle? Do I want 3, 4? You know, it's going to take me a lot of effort to assemble an army in Northern Virginia if I don't upgrade some of the commanders. So I think I'm going to upgrade a couple of them with PCs. I just haven't decided what. I also upgraded Price over here. That puts him up to 3 stars. I could also upgrade McCulloch and maybe face what Lyons' force is here, which I should also know at this point, more or less. He's got about a 7 offensive capability, whereas I'm not too far behind that. If I upgrade Price or McCulloch, I get another point. For a single battle, obviously the best use of points is going to be adding CSP, congressional support points. But a single battle isn't enough. You also need to build up your force pool. So I do want to upgrade some of these troops, and I just haven't quite figured out what I'm doing yet. I chose to give my upgrades to Jackson and Johnston. Figured I've got to do something to keep Richmond better defended. And then spent the rest on CSPs, and I'm up to 10 of those. The Union kept a PC. There may be reasons for doing that. I can't think of one right away. Remember, the Confederates start with some CSPs already aligned to, I don't know what that represents, better military preparedness at the beginning of the war or whatever. But it doesn't really influence anything because the Union's given the flexibility of the of having more PCs to play with. All right. So now we're going to the naval phase, and I'm going to take me a little break. I just need to grab a couple of dice to use here. And mark where I am in the sequence of play. Well, the Union is going to keep, the Confederates are going to, they have, player with the initiative will have determined who moves first. So the Union has to move first here, according to what I understand. That's oddly stated, but it's, the rules seem to state that every phase the initiative player has to go first unless they have that bonus. So the Union's going to have to go first. They can't hunt commerce raiders with that one ship. And in terms of blockades, you know, they could throw a blockade on one of these tiny towns, but that doesn't really do anything. It has to be 7 supply points that's going to affect the blockading of ports, which will cause damage. So right now, I don't even want to start the blockade. I'm just stockpiling a navy to do naval things. It doesn't really serve me much purpose. I could reduce the defensive strength of a port city by 1. Norfolk might not be a terrible choice for the simple fact that, hey, maybe I could get there. But you know what? It's not worth it. Okay. For the Confederates, though, they do want to sail out and throw a ship out in the raider box. And this did not change columns. Not by my view of changing columns, but the words might be different. Yeah, so I think the turn it goes out, it's able to roll out here. So on a 4 through 6, the Union's going to lose a CSP. And indeed they do. So I'm already having a salutary effect on the war effort with my boat. My PC has killed a CSP and has done good. Alright, now we go to the rail phase. And at this point, again, the Union has to go first. And here I have to think kind of carefully because I'm allowed to move 2 stars by rail. And from one city to another. And I'm not really sure where or how I want to do this. You know, if I leave things too open in the West, I might see a quick invasion of Kentucky, grabbing all of it, and then, you know, a move against me there. So is there anywhere there that I really feel like I need to reinforce? I probably need banks up here, so that's, or someone to move into Washington so that I can bring my whole force into play. Hancock is not terribly useful where he is, whereas I have a small force under McClellan that perhaps I could put a threat against Spartanburg. I'm not sure. I'm going to think about it. The rail movement was a really tough decision for me, not really knowing how these games form up. In some of the other games I can do the rail movement as part of my operations. That all works pretty well. I need more troops here, whatever. But here I have to make those decisions on a pre-turn basis. And I pulled Ewell and Beauregard up because they're far away and I need more troops in that eastern theater. And they're not necessarily trivial to move, although neither one's expensive. For the Union, I worried more about the more expensive banks, just moving in one hex to cover Washington. And I think I also pulled Halleck to join Lyon's army. Now, they each get subordinated to the commander of the army. In fact, this was one of the thoughts, well, what about somebody like Hancock? Well, for one point I can move him and do something with him. So it's kind of hard for me to convince myself to get him moving. I don't really have a feel as to how the game's going to progress, how supplies are really going to work and everything, which is going to be an important factor to determining, where you can actually advance and where you can't. It's what, 2 hexes to a rail? Damned if I know. All that slips away, right? So it's completely this learning experience for me. But I think I've done everything on the rail phase, and I'm going to the operations phase. Everybody's going to get a hand of cards at this point. Doing it slow going. It's taking forever for that huge intro. It's probably pretty pointless to make it up anyway. Okay. One of the problems I always have with CDGs, I'm going to take a look at the cards here for the Union, is what the hell do you do? It doesn't usually immediately become obvious kind of what your strategy should be or what your options for strategy are. But looking at cards can help. I have a peculiar general. These are kind of a mishmash. You don't know whether they're going to come out good or bad. My guess is overall they're bad, so you want to play them on your opponent. But once you see some of the factors coming out, if bad ones have come out, maybe they're better. Now this can be used as a combat card, as a resource, and it doesn't have a lot of value as anything else. So those resource cards almost direct you towards engaging in battle so you can use them. My other cards generally aren't very good. This laying a trap, which allows me to get rid of an irregular from the game. Well, that may be worth holding on to until I get an irregular. I have Stanton, who's a 2-point card, but I can also choose to roll a die and see, maybe I'll get more points. Or opposition in Georgia, the CS must move a general nearest to but not in Georgia to Atlanta. This sounds like a nice card, to tell you the truth. What opposition in Georgia has to do with Stanton, it's hard to tell. Stanton's point value might make sense. There's no one in Georgia. So it has some cost to the Confederates. They either are going to lose 2 PCs or they're going to have to move there. That's of some value. Hannibal Hamlin, that's not very valuable. Discarded Seditionist. Now, if I had a Seditionist, that would be great. Except, well, I don't have 10 PCs, do I? I think that's what you can discard them on. Let's go see. The rules on sedition, you have to have you can discard one, you can discard them freely one at a time if you have a PC total of 10 or more. And I assume that that's one at a time during normal card play, as opposed to just, yep. One has to read things in. So that's probably not too useful except for the points. Alan Pinkerton, I get to see his hand or his total attack strength of any two forces he shows me. And I don't have to roll for the generals, which it wouldn't matter if I did. It might be useful. I don't know, might not. It's not like I get to do anything with his hand after I look at it. Decrease Confederate PC by 2 and examine 2 cards in his hand chosen randomly. But this is a lot of points. So if I want to actually do things, and remember I have this requirement to do things in Virginia, I'm going to need something like that. Now McDowell's only a 2-pointer, so I could get him moving right off the bat. Any reason I don't want to just strike down and try for Richmond? Well, there's the fact that Washington might fall. I'm only a minor army, so I can actually cross if I don't bring Banks with me. So I might cross the river and be able to do something else. I can't have any campaigns at this point in the game. So I'm going to think about this a little longer. This is, you know, if I'm playing this kind of game face to face, it's going to take me maybe a half hour to decide to play a card. You know, when I'm playing it at home, I'm going to wander away for a couple hours between each card play. It's really hard for me to make these kind of decisions in a game because it's not like I feel like, oh yeah, I can just see what happens. I just don't feel like I have that kind of grounding in the story that the game's trying to tell without playing it. And I felt the same about a lot of CDGs and a lot of newer type designs, things like the Axis Empires games. In the end, just doing it seems like the only option. Now, I don't want to play my George Thomas card because he could be useful. He's got 4 points on him. He could be useful in moving someone who's a little slow. So I'm definitely not going to go with him. Now the question, though, is what do I want to move? I'm kind of interested in moving Lion. Why? Because this is what I did with the old Civil War, the Victory Games version. Is I said, okay, you know, I'm afraid to do something here in Washington. If I move down on Richmond, I may be exposing Washington. If I attack Jackson, I may be exposing Washington in that direction. I just can't take the chance. I don't know how big the chance is. There must be some PC effect to Washington falling, but I don't recall it offhand. So maybe it's not that big a deal if the Confederates take Washington. But I'm afraid of that and don't want to look through the rules. I spent a long time looking for the Eastern Theater penalty, which is the Virginia thing. Unfortunately, there's no glossary in this rule book. There's an index at the beginning, and then in the playbook, well, there's a lot of historical information, and then the damned Kickstarter lists. And no, I'm not griping because I'm not on it. I think it's a waste of time no matter what. You know, I mean, I'm paying for a game. I'm not paying to get my name in a game. Anyway, this seems like the lower risk option to get a move there. So I've got a 1 point that I can spend. The question is, do I want to spend, say, my Stanton and get some more PCs possibly. Odds are, let's see, on a 1 or 2 I get nothing. On a 3 I get enough. On a 4 I get the same. 5 or 6 could get me more. Yeah, he's just worth 2. Alright. Well, I'll hold on to him because he has the potential of giving me more points. I'm going to play this Hannibal Hamlin card because it doesn't do me anything. And we're going to get moving. And now I think I have a big enough stack. It's only, it's less than 6. That I can go 1, 2, and attack. And we'll attack Price here. Now things get complicated again because this is a secondary attack. We don't know how big each of us is. All we know is that we're minor armies each. We probably have some idea. But now the decision has to be made to... Did we play one of these? I don't want to waste this here. Although I will get another card for it. So as the Union... show you what I'm going to be picking. This isn't in play yet. I'm going to pick a 0 resource card, and essentially you lay these suckers down, and now, these campaigns I don't need yet, put them with that. And now I've got to pick a number of CSPs that I'm going to commit to the battle, and this adds to my strength. And likewise, I'll be doing the same with the Confederates. This probably isn't the key battle in the game, but we both have a lot of CSPs, so I'm going to kind of even out my rolls for how many CSPs each person commits to a battle. I'm just going to do my own little randomization. I'll come back when we get the results. I didn't just use a flat die roll. What I did was on a 3 or 4, I would take the 2 middle ones. On a 1 or 2 or 5 or 6, I would take a larger span, including the middle and the end points. Anyway. Neither player had a resource they wanted to play. Confederates had a couple in their hand that didn't really apply, but our CSP points are 5 and 3. So now the U.S. has to have 3 to spend, and the Confederates went with a big 5. That actually doesn't seem as odd as it might to some people, because I often in Civil War games make a big push in the Trans-Mississippi with the Confederates, but it was random in this case. So this is what we have is a 2-point difference here, but we got to look at the strengths. And the defense strength for the Confederates is 4 plus 2, adding these numbers here, is 6. And I've got a garrison here, which means this goes down by 1, so it's 0. Okay. So I've got a 6 defense plus 2 gives me an 8. And Lion has 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're on the 0. That gives me a skirmish, which means we didn't really succeed in anything. No clear winner. Combat strength is revealed. The attacker withdraws. There's more than that. That's not correct. And not by my memory. Who knows if there's a distinction whether or not to follow. I remember there being a casualty on the skirmish, though. Okay. It's over here. The attacker. Yeah, there is no other effect. Okay, great. So each player is going to have to make a casualty check at this point. And these cards go back in the hands. I'll put them... I'm going to keep them face up because otherwise I'll get them confused with my other hand, but it doesn't really matter. So we'll check the Union first. All we're worried about here is a casualty possibility. We don't get one. We get a wheat field. And that card's now gone, you know. And for the Confederates, nothing. In a sense, who spent the most? The Union spent an action to get into play here, whereas the Confederates spent more CSPs for that kind of neutral battle. I'm not sure which to charge. You know what? This Hannibal Hamlin card had a 2-point activation, so I have 1 more point. I can't use that to remove IT, so I pump that into my PC total, so I have more political capital. For the most part, that's for next turn, although it's possible PCs can go up or down during a turn. And now we're over on the Confederate turn, and that was so traumatic that I need another break. Now I'm up to the Confederate turn, and I'll probably split this first turn into multiple videos. First of all, I have a couple of seditious characters. Now, I can hold one of them until next turn. That's one option. But then I'm still going to have to take a 2 PC cost on this guy. Now, I know this is coming, so I'm going to try not to use up all my CSPs because, well, I got to have 1 point left, so I got to keep myself at 3 at the end of the turn. But I'm cutting kind of close. I could see a collapse here if I'm not careful. An option. I can't get rid of them because I don't have the 10 PCs in the bank that I would need to do that. And I didn't know I was going to get 2 of these. An option is to use these combat cards and try to play these. An adjacent force can reinforce a battle, or I can march to another space. Especially the second one here, the march to another space, doesn't terribly help me. And I'll get another draw for that. So that might get me a 3rd seditious one so I can start discarding them. Other than that, I don't have a very good hand. The Jackson card can allow me to bank a significant amount of PCs. I'm not sure what the hell I want to do, though. I didn't suffer any losses here. There aren't a lot of choices that I have on my turn with my cards. All I can do in this game, unlike some of them, is I can activate forces, I can remove the IT points, and I can collect PCs. All the other stuff is handled inside other phases of the game. I kind of like that, because it focuses my activity on one thing or another, but it focuses on kind of the hard choice all the time. So right now it's very difficult for me. What do I want to do? Well, I'd like to get moving with Johnston, I think. Or maybe do something here in the east, because there's clearly a decent-sized force. Which Johnston? There's a decent-sized force facing me in Washington, but what can I do with it? What can I do to win this game? How can I affect the enemy? I can take cities, I guess. I seem to remember that affects PCs, but unfortunately, I don't think there's any kind of list of all the things that affect PCs anywhere. Here it is. Yeah, there is. No, these are things you can buy. Yeah, I'm trying to look for what happens when I take a city. And, you know, once you kind of learn it and internalize it, it's there. I know that it has an effect, but I'll be back after perusing the rules for another 15 minutes or so looking for this rule. Because there's no nice index to get me there. Bad design. What I was able to find has to do with retreating. A city abandoned by a defending force continues on. If the city has lost a number of PCs equal to the supply value, or subtracted from the losing player's status track and added to the victor's status track. If that's all that's in application, and it's not clear one way or another, and maybe there's a rule somewhere else that says something else, but this rule book is not designed to be able to find things in it, like many CDGs, honestly. I'm not sure that I made a mistake, say, with Lyon not moving to grab Jefferson City. I should perhaps have grabbed these and gained control of Missouri. Why? Shit, I don't know. Doesn't seem like there's any real reason to control a state in particular. Maybe there is. Who knows? But if I take this, I'm not taking it from the enemy, so I'm not taking any of his PC points. And more, I don't see any indication that I get any for taking it. So kind of the hell with it, right? I don't want to own Missouri. I want to, or at least I don't want to own it except by taking these territories, these cities that are enemy cities, actually taking them away from them. Anyway, that was for the Union, where I thought maybe I made a mistake not grabbing an easy city. But yeah, there's some value to taking a city. And I don't know, the 3 supply points for Washington seem pretty minor. That's all that I see that you get for it. So attacking Washington and defending it seems kind of unimportant, to tell you the truth. I'm trying to figure out something else I want to do. I don't really want to attack Kentucky because it's full of neutral cities, which will only be a liability on me as far as I can see. Huh? Yeah, and I pay 5 PC to make the attack. It's only major armies that have a trouble crossing. So I'm trying to find a 1 or 2 point thing that I can use this brag card for, that I want to do. And I honestly don't really want to do a damn thing. You know? Well, you know, if that's the case, if I don't want to do a damn thing, I'm going to roll on that card, and I'm not going to do a damn thing. What the hell? I get a 4, which gets me 2 PCs, and I'm just going to bank them. I get enough PCs, and there's advantages to that. All right. Well, that was exciting enough that I'm going to go to the U.S. turn, because I really can't come up with something I'm trying to do terribly much. I mean, obviously, I'm trying to hurt my enemy PC points, but I don't feel like I'm really at the advantage of that. I feel like my CSPs and PCs are lower, so now I'm kind of on the defensive, so I gotta boost them. But, yeah, it's time for another break. So, the Stanton card is kind of weird. I want to look this up to see how it works. CS player must, I've looked at it before, must move the 2-star general nearest, but not in Georgia, to Atlanta, or decrease Confederate PC by 2. Well, I don't know where we have a 2-star general nearby. Price, he's pretty far away. Johnson, those are going to be my closest. Now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hexes away. So it looks like it's Johnson who would be required. Now, there's 2 issues here. One is, he must move them. Is that a teleportation? Or does he have to expend effort to move them? Because if he has to expend effort, this ain't going to work at all. And it's almost never going to work, right? Most generals are going to cost 2 activities to play. You might as well burn the PCs off here and say the hell with it. Well, let's see if there's anything in here about this Stanton card, which is card number 4. Maybe that has... Okay, that's the Confederates. I don't know what the answer is going to be here. Okay, we got our Confederate cards here. Yeah. I don't seem to have a... See, I've got... Yeah, no, those are all Confederate. I see that I've got Union here. This could be, again, maybe the pages are screwed up. I've got Union 46. Where's Union 4? This goes to Cleburne. Huh. Okay, maybe the card numbers have nothing to do with any of this. So let's try to look alphabetically. Again, you know, so many things in this game defy one's expectations of what they'd find in a rule book or something. Here's just another case. Okay. No. This just gives historical background. Well, gosh, I don't know. He must move him. What the hell's that supposed to mean? Yeah, no clue. I don't believe that there's any follow-up on the events that lets you understand that. Teleporting doesn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense. It really doesn't. But nor does forcing, trying to remember that someone's got to make it there. Under what time limit? By the end of the turn? On the next move? What? I don't know. I think it's a kill 2 PCs, and the rest of the card doesn't make any sense at all. It would have to be maybe if they can move there on the next turn or something. Who knows? I'm going to hold that because it might help me drain expected PCs and get me a quick victory. Of course, this one also allows me to drain PCs. Now the problem here is I want to launch my attack. I have a requirement to do so. But I'm going to play this sucker, reduce the PCs by 2, and examine 2 random Confederate cards. I think I've got a chance of draining him. No, not if he doesn't spend. So let's see which random cards I get to see. The 2nd and the 3rd. So I pick Rhett and Ewell. Well, what does that tell me that I can possibly use? Okay, I don't want to attack out of good defensive terrain into not so good defensive terrain. That's okay. I'll leave these face up so I can remember them. And a sedition card, which maybe doesn't mean a damn thing. Okay, well, that's my Union action. Let's go to the Confederates. And I guess I can just keep playing a little bit longer. Yeah, it's really hard for me, and I've said this several times, nowadays facing the CDGs. When I first looked at them, they were easier for me to get a grasp on just because I was more excited about what one might be able to do with them. Now I'm not so impressed with what they manage. I still kind of get some enjoyment out of them, but there's a high hurdle on each one because they come up with new systems for every single game that aren't really particularly exciting to me in an innovation sort of fashion. And I don't know, other than the richness of event cards, which this game seems to really lack. The events here seem to be rather flavorless. Alright, well, what the hell do I want to do? I have a nice reinforcement card which could conceivably help bring Hill, say, into Jackson's hex if that gets attacked. That would be nice. Got my damn sedition cards, which I don't like there. And then, well, I've got something to launch an attack with lots and lots of points. I don't know what I can do with lots and lots of points to launch an attack. I don't find a place where I want to launch an attack, but the problem is if I don't launch an attack, I may not be able to use these cards. So, I'm just not seeing one though. I'd love to get rid of a sedition card by other means. But I think what I'm going to have to do, just because I'm feeling behind the gun in so many ways, is spend a sedition card, and that loses me 2 congressional points. Alright. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to move the dice up to the Union, take another break, and yeah, you know, I mean, I'm taking all day to play one turn that should probably take about 15-20 minutes, but that's the way I am when I'm facing things where I'm not getting a lot of story, I'm just playing cards, these days at least. And I'm going to load this one up. Let's see what we get out out of it.